Wow. Wow. Hey guys, welcome back to some more reviews, and today we're getting to The Final Destination. Now, this film came out in 2009, fourth film in the series, gets a 5.2 on IMDb, and was directed by David R. Ellis. Now, David R. Ellis had made the second movie, and majority of the crew came back to make this movie. Guys like, I believe one of the writers, I believe maybe the writers, producers, some people came back from part 2 to be involved with this film. And man, I remember when this movie first came out. I remember seeing the advertisements for this film. I remember seeing all kinds of stuff on this movie. And I remember the first time I seen this film, and I wasn't a fan of it back then. And rewatching it again, man, this is definitely the worst film in the series. To a lot of people, Part 5 is, but to me, Part 5 at least has some decent looking effects. At least has some good ideas for death scenes. At least tried to introduce some new, not a lot of new stuff, but the little bit of ideas they did do, I was like, alright, whatever. This movie has none of that, man. It's really bad. This was just a horrible time for horror. Let's be honest. This was a terrible time to be a horror fan. Because at this time there was, of course, the really big boom of 3D horror films. There was Saw 3D, aka Saw the Final Chapter. There was Silent Hill 3D, aka Silent Hill Revelations. There was Resident Evil 3D, aka Resident Evil Afterlife. There was Piranha 3D, then Piranha 3 Double D. I mean, just a horrible time to be a horror fan, because these movies put so much time and money and effort into the 3D effects that the most common problem with these movies that came out around this time, that was all focused around the 3D aspect, is they have nothing else. That they have nothing else to offer. And of course, it's a problem with this film. There's just nothing here. There's nothing here. And I get it. It's like, well, the first 3 movies, they're all about the gore. I don't really think it's like that. I mean, with the first 3 movies, at least you had a decent cast. At least you had some decent looking effects. You know, at least you had some great ideas for death scenes. At least you had some clever ideas. At least you had great characters, great character moments, characters I can remember. Like, even though Part 3, I felt, didn't have as great as a cast as the first 2, there are still people I remember are 2 or 3 leads. I think it was 2 leads in that movie. Mary Elizabeth Winstead and the other guy from Hell Resurrection. I remember those people. I remember, you know, the perverted guy with the camera. I remember the Texas Battle character. I remember different characters from that movie. Part 2 and Part 1 have great characters, and they have great cast. Even Part 3 had a pretty decent cast. Here, it's just there's nothing here. Even the premonition sequence, to me, isn't really that strong. I mean, you had the first 3 movies, the first one being a plane, which is a pretty scary idea. Second one being a highway, which is a pretty scary idea. And they're all relatable. Scary ideas, and they're relatable. And in Part 3, with the roller coaster, relatable and scary. Here, it's a NASCAR race. A NASCAR racetrack scene that was just not even impactful. Like, it didn't... The effects were the biggest part of it. It was just... You look at the first 3's premonition sequences, And you look at this one, there's just no cleverness to it, there's no energy to it, there's no holy shit moments to it. Maybe one moment of going holy shit, but everything else was just really bad CGI and really bad just really bad looking effects, and just didn't look good. And man, this movie sucked. I rewatched this movie again. I had to rewatch it again because I didn't remember anything about it. And I just got done rewatching it yesterday, and I still do not remember anything about this movie. At least anything worthwhile. Just really bad, man. Really bad. Like I said, the story, you had these teens at this NASCAR race, and of course the premonition happens, same old, people start dying, reveals it's not, it was a premonition, they get out of there, it actually happens, and the one good thing about that scene and the one holy shit moment is they get out of there, and this one girl's going, what the fuck is wrong with you, what's going on? And a tire flies from the top, which, by the way, you think about how a tire fling all the way out of there, and just I don't know. I get it, it's like, well, Death did it, but still, it's like a tire flew all 100 feet up in the air and landed but it is gory. It comes down, hits the girl, she splatters, you see the after effect, which is one of the very few practical effects you get in this film, and the movie goes into, probably one of my favorite things from this movie, the opening credits. You have a rock and roll version of the Final Destination theme song. Alright, cool, that sounds badass. You have x-rays of previous movies' death scenes, like the barbed wire death, or the kitchen knife going in the girl's chest, or, the roller coaster stuff, the highway stuff, all done in these really cool looking x-ray stuff. Okay, cool idea. But the rest of this movie is just the same thing. It's just not even doing anything different. Nothing different, nothing unique, just people being knocked off one by one, and some of the most lame death scenes in the series. And some of the most ridiculous, they're not even trying to be creative with this movie's death scenes. In the first 3 movies, Death just couldn't move an object. In this movie, Death is over here controlling cars. You see, levers getting pulled to where the car drives off. And you have that death scene where the guy gets pretty much scraped across the road and catches on fire. And it's just I'll get into the death scenes, man, but it's just a story that goes nowhere. And they have a moment in this story where they think, oh, it's over, it's done. And it carries on for a good 20, 15 minutes of them thinking it's over. And I'm like, dude, it's obviously not over. We got 30 minutes left in this movie. There's no way it's over. And it's not. It's just a really drawn out ending, third act, where it doesn't make sense. At this point, I get it, maybe it's a different idea, but does not make sense. It does not make sense. In the first movie, very straightforward. It was Devon Sawa the lead. It was, him trying to save his friends, trying to tell people about this, looking for the signs. It was about the cast dealing with it in different ways. The Claire character trying to help out Devon Sawa's character. It was about that. It was very straightforward. Second movie, you had a cool idea of, you can't commit suicide, you can't get shot, you can't die unless it's your turn, which they briefly bring up for this film as if it's nothing. They don't take it, they bring it up and then do nothing with it. They do nothing with it. And at least in the third movie, it's it's same old, but you had that decent idea of a premonition scene at the end of the movie and it being the train scene. Alright, interesting idea. And even that DVD at least had the choose their fate. Here, it's nothing. It's just it's just, I don't even know what to say. It's just they do this really stupid idea of the deja vu stuff. And basically our lead sees a false ending where people are getting killed. He's having another premonition. Why it happens, I don't know. And I didn't even notice this in the first time I watched it, but there's no Tony Todd in this movie. You know, at least in part 3, he was in the movie as the voice of the roller coaster. Right here, he's not in this movie at all. So they didn't get Tony Todd back in this film at all. And at least the first movie, and the first 3 movies have an atmosphere, have a mood. They're shot very well. They have a great look to them. This movie, it's just no interesting camera techniques, no interesting looks, no good lighting. The movie looks, and a lot of 3D movies at this time, you know, had this really awful look to them. It had this, maybe because they focused so much on the 3D stuff, it began to look very cheap. Like, the effects look cheap. The way that it looks cheap. And this movie did have a decent budget to it. You know? I mean, especially with the 3D stuff. This movie had a budget of $40 million. It made $27 million opening weekend. Grossed about $66 million in the US. Made about $180 million worldwide. This movie cost $40 million. Can you guys believe that? And this movie just looks cheap. Like I said, it just looks cheap. Besides the music and the opening credits, there's no more music in the rest of the movie that I care for. At least the first 3 movies have some good music to them. You know, I remember certain pieces of music that I really enjoyed. Here, it's like, besides that opening, there's nothing else to the score. I don't even think you hear a score throughout the rest of the movie, till the very end. It's like, really? And I mean, I get it. It's like, well, why can't you just watch it for the gore? The gore is, like, fake looking. It's all CGI, 3D stuff to the screen. Or just stupid ideas. Stupid ideas. There's a death scene where a guy gets pushed through the most fakest looking fences I've ever seen in a horror film. Literally, the fence is not even, it's like, I've never seen a fence made like this before. The fence is like that thick. You might as well put razor blades on that fence. And he gets pushed through it, and 3D CGI, and it looks like crap. You have that scene I told you about where the truck kind of shifts gears and drives off and catches the guy on fire, and he's getting dragged down. And the song, "Why Can't We Be Friends?" is playing. And I'm just like sitting there. And I watch these death scenes, and they're all terrible. There's like one good death scene, maybe 2, and they're not even really real. They don't even really happen. But the rest of it is like, okay, this asshole guy goes into a pool, literally gets his ass sucked out. Like, literally gets his insides and everything sucked out through his ass. And you see it come out of the pool thing, and it blood and guts everywhere. Fucking horrible, terrible death scene. Really lame. What else was there? There was a kind of an homage to the first movie where a bus smacks a guy into pieces. But the only really good death scenes is the escalator death scene, which I thought was really creative, and it was actually done well. Like, that CGI effect looked decent, I will say, because the girl is getting pulled in, and there's something about just that idea of being on an escalator and that happening that I will admit, there are some scenes and sequences in this movie that I thought were done decently. Like I said, that scene, decent. You know, she gets drug in, her feet and everything gets crumbled to pieces, blood squirting everywhere. Alright, it looks kind of practical. Alright, cool. There's a 3D movie being played, and when the explosion happens in the movie, the whole thing kind of... It's a real explosion that comes through the screen and catches this one girl on fire. Alright, decent idea. You have a car wash scene, which is like, really... You think about it, it's like you're at a car wash. A fucking car wash. what is this gonna do to somebody? Clean them to death? Like, I get it. It's like, well, the things, they spin really fast. It's like, well, like, it's a car wash. You know, they may look scary, they may seem scary, but if you really think about it, it's like a car wash. Like, I don't know. Maybe it could hurt you. Maybe it could kill you. I don't know. But first of all, where is everybody in this car wash? Second of all, does like car washes have like a thing where if you get out of your car, it kind of stops or something? I don't know. I figured there would be, but maybe I'm just stupid. But like, if you really think about it, it's like a car wash. But then, if you turn your brain off and look at it, it's kind of a well shot sequence. I will admit, it's very well shot. It's kind of a, like I said, if you turn your brain off, it's a kind of an interesting idea. But I will say, the sequence is shot very well. Because when you're working with that kind of a, you know, it's a lot of usage of water. There's a lot of stunts in that scene involving water. And it's kind of risky doing that in movies. So I figured they would just CGI the water. No, it's actually done all practically what it looks like. And the girl is in the car and the pipe busts and the car fills with water. And it looks practical. And she kind of gets out of the top of the car, but her head gets stuck. You see the water overflowing, then her head is being slowly pushed into this thing in the car wash. Okay, pretty decent looking sequence. And I will say here, I'm not going to sit here and blame this cast or the crew, because I think possibly what it was just, this is a very common thing, is like, maybe it got rushed. Maybe they didn't have a lot of time to make this movie. Because, like I said, a lot of these 3D horror films that were coming out from, like, 2009 to 2013 were, like, really, you know, really rushed, and they all kind of have the same problems. So I kind of wonder if this movie kind of suffered from that. So I'm not going to sit here and blame the cast or the director or the writers, because, like I said, I mean, maybe it was just a really rushed film. Maybe this is just a film that the reason it probably has so much CGI and looks like that is because it is a 3D horror film. But that's the problem when you do that stuff. And, you know, it really, the movie just, I will say this. Here are the positives of this movie. The opening with the music and the X-rays. Alright, cool. The ending with the X-rays. Cool. And the music playing. I will say this. A couple of the characters I thought were doing their best. Like our lead, Nick Zane. I thought he was doing the best he could as our lead. Or is it not Nick Zane? That's the asshole character, Hunt. You have Bobby Campo playing our lead character, Nick. I thought he did pretty decent for what this kind of movie is. Like, you know, I thought he actually did try to do his best with this performance. You know, I definitely thought he did a decent job as the lead. He's trying his best. I even think the Laurie character is decent. You know, a lot of these characters are trying, but what it is, too, is they don't really try to give these characters any scenes of interesting dialogue or good character building moments or fleshing these characters out, making you care about them. They give them this horrible dialogue, they give them these horrible cliche stuff, and unfortunately the characters in this movie are just very generic and just pale. There's nothing to these characters, nothing to this. Like you could pay these characters to characters from the first three movies. It's just there's nothing here. They're all just generic characters, and some of the lines in there is just horrible. Like there's a scene where in the 3D theater scene where the girl goes, you know, I'm staying and seeing this movie like I was meant to, or something like that. I'm just like, no. Or just the generic stuff, man. Like they're shopping, so they gotta have the generic shopping dialogue, or they're at this like, it looks like an internet cafe, and of course they gotta have generic stuff about smoothies and stuff. You know, Guy drinks it. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. It's like, dude, like this dialogue. Like I said, the acting. Like I said, the acting and the actors. You know, like the actors are trying their best with this movie. It's just the dialogue and the writing, man. It's just like, dude, it is bad. And yeah, you have a lot of 3D CGI. It looks like crap. You have a horrible look to it. Characters that I really didn't care about, that have no building to them, that have no cleverness to them, they're just generic characters with nothing else to them. You have just really lazy death scenes with only a few that are okay. You have just a pretty weak premonition sequence, pretty weak ending that kind of, and this is where we're really gonna get, this is where we're gonna really get into the problems. The third act to this movie is complete garbage to me because, first of all, they have this long, drawn out, like I said, oh, it's over. It's not over. You know it's not over. There's like 30 to 40 minutes left in this movie. And they drag it out, and it is slow, and it is boring. You know, first of all, they do this deja vu thing, which just, to me, in my opinion, did not work. It just felt, I had too many questions about, like, why would death make deja vu happen so that it could warn him? Like, why would it do that instead of the signs? The signs, at least, death is just trying to give them something to help them. Here, it's like the deja vu stuff, like why? Like, this whole scene is drawn out where, you know, one of the guys gets hit by a bus, then he goes to the mall. The 3D theater sequence happens where the girl gets, like, you know, the whole 3D theater gets put into fire and stuff like that because the fire goes to the screen and actually, you know, explodes and stuff. The escalator sequence. Then he just snaps out of it, and it's like the guy gets hit by the bus again. Then he goes there and tries to save them. I guess he does, but it doesn't even really matter. So it's like the last 30, 40 minutes of the movie is nothing. It means nothing. It goes nowhere. It is a really stalled, really slow, really dragging third act. It is dragging. Because it goes absolutely nowhere. Because he gets there, saves them from that happening, and then they're at this back at the internet cafe, and, you know, he goes in there and realizes, you know, what if it was Death's plan all along for us to be here right now? And I'm like, where did you get that idea from? Then it zooms out to like a truck, and it bursts to the freaking place, and they all get killed, and the movie ends. And it ends with like a bunch of X-ray CG, like a bunch of X-ray skeleton stuff. Like, dude, what? So first of all, you had that. I get it. It's a horror film. I get it. It's a slasher film. You shouldn't pay attention to the writer of the characters or anything. But when you don't have the gore, at least good-looking gore, at least if you don't have practical gore effects and all this cheap-looking CGI crap, and you have lines that are terrible, dialogue that's terrible, characters that are just generic, then I'm sorry. I'm going to look at the writing too. It's like, you look at this, it's like the last 30 minutes is pointless. It's nothing. The deja vu thing is like, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. When you sit back, you're like, alright, so what caused the deja vu? Death? Why would death make him have the deja vu thing and repeat it? Why would death do that? What, to play around with the characters? Like, to play with their minds? Why? If death had this whole thing planned to where you went through all of this to the ending, and, oh, this was meant to happen. We were meant to be here. Oh, we're all dead. It's like, so then what was the point of the whole movie? Are you literally telling me? You're literally telling me. I'm over here coughing. I'm dying over here. You're literally telling me that whole movie was pointless. Basically. Because you're saying no matter what you did, no matter how fast you reacted, no matter the deja vu stuff, no matter any of that, trying to stop the order, trying to figure out the order, all that hour and a half of me watching this movie, or maybe it wasn't even, I don't think it was an hour and a half. I think it was like an hour and, yeah, it was an hour and 22 minutes, but still, it's like, you're telling me all of that I just watched, oh, it's just planned all along. It's just planned all along. So what? You're literally telling me it was pointless? I don't know, man. I'm 25 minutes into this video, and I'm pretty sure people are tired of hearing me talk about this movie. The point of this video, in this review, is that this movie sucks, it's terrible, it's awful, and it's the worst film in the series. This is just awful. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review of The Final Destination. Definitely the worst one in my opinion. Just nothing really positive to say about it, except for maybe a couple scenes, and the actors are trying to do their best. Like, the cast and crew is trying to do their best with this movie, but it has a lot of problems. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review of this movie. I'm going to give this movie a 3, being generous, 2, if I'm being honest, but I'll go ahead and give it a 3. Why not? I mean, why not? I'll give it a 3. 3 out of 10 for me. It's just horrible. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this film in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the long video, but I will see you guys in the next review. The Explorer of Horror is out. Bye, guys.